This lesson is on verbs. Now, we were all taught that verbs show action, but verbs do so much more. They tend to show when the action occurs. It's not just the action, but when the action occurs. Now, there are four forms of a regular verb. Okay? You have the base form, the S form, the ED form, and the ING form. Now, the base form is the verb itself. Present tense, and it's used for all persons but third person singular. Third person singular, as we know, is a pronoun. Okay, so for all the other pronouns, and if we're talking about it in the present tense, the action, you would use the base form of the verb. An example would be walk. Now, the S form is the verb with an S added to it. It is used during present tense, and it's used for proper nouns and third person singular. And the example is walks. Now, ED form of the verb is the verb with an ED, and it is past tense. It's used for past tense. Now, the ING form of the verb is the verb with an ING, and it goes from point A to point B. So basically, the action is going from one point to another point. And the example is walking. So you have the base form walk, you have the S form walks, you have the ED form walked, and you have the ING form walking. An example of the base form with walk would be I walk to school. Now for the S form, it could be she, which is third person singular, walks to school. If we used a proper noun, Sarah walks to school. If I say I walks to school or we walks to school, that just doesn't sound right. Okay? So make sure you understand when to use these forms. The ED form is past tense, I walked to school, and the ING form walking from point A to point B. Now, you are going to give me 5 sentences using each form of the verb. Now, if you look at the timeline over here, okay, this is our makeshift timeline. You notice that present tense is just one point in time. Past tense, or the ED form, is one point in time. I walked home. It's just one point. I walk home. It's one point. The ING form, which is known as the progressive tense, is from point A to point B. Okay, that's our timeline. We will be adding to it. Now, over here, sorry, it's almost Blair Witch. I have a regular verb and I have an irregular verb. I have the regular verb, which I use for the 4 forms of a regular verb, which is walk, walks, walked, and walking. On the other side of it, I have the irregular verbs. Run, runs, ran, and running. I usually in class would ask what the difference is, but since we're not in class, I'm going to tell you. The difference between a regular verb and an irregular verb is in the past tense. Notice how we have walk, walks with an S, walked with an ED, walking with an ING, walk with an ING. But on the irregular verb, we have run, R-U-N, runs, R-U-N with an S, and then we have ran, R-A-N, and then running with an ING. The spelling in the past tense of an irregular verb changes. That is the difference between a regular verb and an irregular verb. There are like 350 irregular verbs in the English language. I can't count that high, so I'll just use that as a nice number. And I am going to make you memorize all of them. Just kidding. Just do me a favor. When you come to class, have 5 different irregular verbs. Okay? So find me 5 different irregular verbs. All right? Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you in class.